Well, good morning if you're watching us live. We're at Seneca Creek. We're doing a live stream. If you're watching this later, thank you for joining in and seeing what this is all about. It is Palm Sunday. I acknowledge it's kind of a unique Palm Sunday for all of us, but we're glad that you're able to join us whenever that happens to be. So if you're watching live, maybe YouTube, Facebook, we would love to have you kind of give us a thumbs up at the bottom of the screen. If you've got the like button, go ahead and click that. If you're not subscribed, you might want to go ahead and subscribe to our channel. That way when we post new content, you'll be able to be aware of that and kind of track with us through this crazy season that we're going through with COVID-19. So thank you for joining us. A couple things I want to let you know about that are coming up today. We're going to have some great music in just a moment. And after that, I've got some stuff to share coming out of Scripture, really related to what we're going through and Palm Sunday. But we also have this week, again, we've got a guest joining us remotely to talk about some unique things that are going on. We've got some great feedback from many of you on what you're doing, some creative ways that you're connecting. And so Pastor Jeanette's going to come up and join me with some of that. We've got some other important information that you're going to want to know about. So all that to say, like we do every week now at this point, right? We encourage you wherever you are, wherever you're watching, maybe by yourself, with your family, go ahead and stand up, right, and get involved in the music. If you're somebody who really likes to move around and dance and shout when you're worshiping and singing, this is your opportunity. Hopefully your neighbors will come knocking on the door later and say, hey, what do you got going on in there? Sounds like a lot of fun. So let's have some great time together worshiping God today, wherever you happen to be. And I'm going to turn it over to Kevin and the worship team. So,
when I was growing up, the saints would come in to church and they would have testimony service. We don't do that too much these days, but they would encourage each other through hard times, and somebody would stand up and go, I will call upon the Lord, for he is worthy to be praised. I will call upon the Lord, for he is worthy to be praised. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. Blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. I will call upon the Lord, for he is worthy to be praised. I will call upon the Lord, for he is worthy to be praised. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. Church mother would stand up, she would go, what a mighty God we serve. What a mighty God we serve. Everybody would join and say, the angels bow before him, heaven and earth adore him. What a mighty God we serve. What a faithful God we serve. What a faithful God we serve. All the angels bow And then they would send us to children's church in the back. And the Sunday school teacher would sing a very profound song, even though we didn't understand at the time, right? She would say, Jesus loves me. This I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. And yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Oh, yes, Jesus loves me. For the Bible tells, the Bible tells, the Bible tells, he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. He loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. And he loves us. He's still protecting us, and God says he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves. 'Cause you're perfect in all of your ways. You can worship. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us. God, you're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us. The song says, you're a good, good Father. That's who you are. That's who you are. That's who you are. And I'm loved by you. That's who I am. That's who I am. You're a good, good Father. That's who you are. That's who you are. That's who you are. And I'm loved by you. That's who I am. Who I am. And for 1 second, just think. Somebody might ask, how is God good with all this happening in the world? And I don't have the answer for you. I can't tell you why these things happen. But all I can tell you is that God is still good. Amen. So one more time, we're going to sing it together. You're a good, good Father. That's who you are. That's who you are. That's who you are. And I'm loved by you. That's who I am. That's who I am. Amen. Now we're going to sing The Lion and the Lamb. On this Palm Sunday, he is the Lion of Judah. He's the Savior of the world. and every chain will break as broken hearts declare his praise. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before. Yes, our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before him. So open up the gates, make way for the King of Kings. The God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. For who can stop the Lord? Oh, everybody say together. Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before him. Everybody gotta say, who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? We're gonna tell this virus this morning, say, who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? No one, nothing, say, who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before him.
Okay, Seneca Creek. Yeah, this looks a little weird, doesn't it? It's not normal. In fact, hold on. Really, nothing's normal right now, is it? And it's occurred to me over the last week or so. We have lives that are filled with routines and predictability, and not only is that kind of comforting for some people, but routines and predictability are very efficient. And in a time like this, where everything's different, every day is new, all the ways that we're used to doing life they're not working. And all that unpredictability, all that change, it's exhausting, isn't it? I just find that this is a season of great exhaustion. Sometimes it's because we have all this unpredictability. But there are other things that are contributing to the exhaustion as well, right? Maybe you're working at home for the first time, and just that new routine and being confined, it wears on you. Maybe you're a family and your kids used to be at school all day, and now they're home all day. And you love your kids to death, but it's exhausting, right? Or maybe you're used to having ways to get out and exercise and just get out of the, get your own space, and being confined is exhausting. Maybe you're one of those people whose jobs are in jeopardy, or you've already lost your job. And the anxiety, the what am I going to do next, that's exhausting, carrying around that mental distress. And also in times like this, sometimes sleep, let's just say it doesn't work great. And so you find that you go to bed at night and you're tossing and turning and your mind is whirling, and the alarm goes off the next morning. You're like, I didn't get a good night's sleep. I'm exhausted. And so in all of these kind of situations, right, where we find ourselves worn out and exhausted, I'm just reminded of Jesus' words. Excuse me while I take this off. I'm reminded of Jesus' words in Matthew 11:28, where he says, "Come to me, you who are weary, and I'll give you rest." And this is one of those times when it can be exhausting and it can be wearying, and we need rest. We need to know Jesus is here. One of the reasons we do these live streams like this every week is because it is a way to remind us and to bring us back to that place that, yeah, Jesus is with us in this moment. Jesus is with us in this quarantine, this pandemic, this shutdown, this uncertainty that we face. We need rest, and Jesus offers that. Because we're in a time right now where nothing is normal. It's Palm Sunday. In my wildest imagination, I never thought, hold on a minute. It's Palm Sunday. Somebody had suggested earlier that maybe we could get Pastor Jeanette to walk back and forth behind me with the palm things, that would not be distracting at all. I don't think Jeanette is up for that, and it probably wouldn't be helpful. But I never imagined we'd have a Palm Sunday like this, did you? Where we're not together. The church is scattered into our homes and apartments and wherever we happen to be. But Palm Sunday, even though it feels very not normal, is still a chance to celebrate and a chance to remember. That's what we want to do in the time that we have here today. And I love the music and the reminder that, yeah, Jesus is the lion and the lamb, and nothing captures that more than this week that we're heading into now that starts with Palm Sunday. By the way, just to let you know, we're going to be doing taking questions a little bit later on in this stream. So if anything that I say raises some questions or thoughts on your part, be sure to jot those into the chat section if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook. I know some of you are watching YouTube on your smart TVs, and it's a little hard to find the chat thing, so go onto the Facebook feed or use your phone or something. We have staff who are monitoring that, and we're going to try to take those questions. We also have some questions from some answers that you have sent in based on a question that I put out yesterday, so we'll share a little bit of that in a moment. But what I want to do is take us back to that first Palm Sunday. It wasn't normal either. Think about it like this. If Jesus shows up in your town, nothing's going to be normal. On that first Palm Sunday, Jesus had just recently raised Lazarus from the dead. Just imagine for a moment if somebody's coming into your town and their reputation preceding them, all the headlines about what this person is oh, by the way, they raised somebody from the dead. Like, this is not going to be normal. And when Jesus rides into Jerusalem on that first Palm Sunday, it was anything but normal. So I want to pick up the story. This is in John's account of Jesus' entry. In John Chapter 12, if you've got a Bible, you can follow along. We're trying to get lyrics for the songs. We had a lot of people saying, hey, we want the lyrics, so we're working on that. So we appreciate your ideas and your feedback. Keep those coming. But here's what John tells us about that first Palm Sunday. John chapter 12, starting in verse 12. The next day, the great crowd that had come for the festival heard that Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. So they took palm branches and they went out to meet him, shouting, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel. Now, there's a lot happening here, so let me just pause for a moment and try to explain a little bit of what's going on. The festival that John talks about was none other than the Jewish Passover, a phenomenal event in the annual calendar of the Jewish people to this day. And by the way, if you're not familiar with Passover, much less familiar with how Jesus actually fulfills so much of what's going on in Passover, let me encourage you. This Friday, Good Friday, 7 o'clock p.m., we're going to do a live stream event on these same channels. And we have one of our own Seneca Creek family who's going to walk us through a Passover Seder meal and how Jesus would have experienced that and how he was the fulfillment of so much of what's going on. If you've never seen anything like this, you don't want to miss it. 7 o'clock this Friday, so be sure to join us for that. So this is the festival that everybody is in town for, right? The crowds are there. Jesus has his reputation. They've come to see this event. And John tells us they took palm branches. Now, this is significant for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is palm branches at that time were not native to Jerusalem. So these were imported from somewhere else. Like if all they did was take the local branches from the trees in their community, and we would be celebrating Sycamore Sunday or Fig Sunday or Olive Sunday or something like that. But it's not. It's Palm Sunday. And so the second reason this is significant, not just that the palm branches weren't native to that area, but the palm branches had enormous significance in the Jewish national mentality in that time. So for hundreds of years, they had been overrun and dominated by different foreign powers. And during that time, there were seasons of uprising and revolt and revolution and trying to seize their own independence from these foreign powers. And during one of those seasons, they actually began minting their own coins, which was absolutely forbidden by the foreign governments who ran them. And on those Jewish coins that they minted during that time, they had circling around them palm branches. And so what happened is the palm branches became like a symbol of nationalism and pride. That when they saw palm branches, it was almost like in our country, in our culture, if you saw, the "don't tread on me" kind of phrase, or if you saw something that was like "hey, let's go have a tea party," right? And when Americans in their history talk about a tea party, they're not talking about this kind of tea party, right? They're talking about a rallying cry, a war cry. So when they brought these palm branches and put them down in front of Jesus, this was significant because this was their agenda. This was their war cry. They're saying, we want a military victorious champion. We want to throw off these foreign oppressors, right? So Jesus rides into town, and people are putting on their war paint. They wanted a king who would give them victory by military force. In other words, they had their own agenda for Jesus. Sometimes, whether it's Palm Sunday or not, we have our own agenda for Jesus, don't we? We want him to make things work our way for our benefit, for our dream, for our vision, for our people, for our cause. And Jesus may or may not have that as part of his agenda. But sometimes we have our own agenda. And so Palm Sunday, the first Palm Sunday, really highlights that the people had an agenda, and it really wasn't Jesus' agenda. So the other important thing happening here, right, besides the palm branches, is the song that they're singing. right? So the Jewish people had their own hymn book. We did some messages on this a while back here at Seneca Creek. It was called the Psalms, or the Psalter, as it's sometimes referred to. 150 songs that are now included in our Bible, in the Old Testament, the book of Psalms, right? And these songs had a variety of different applications. The point is, everybody in that time knew all the songs. They knew all the words to all the songs. It was just like if I started singing now and said, "Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?" Like you would know what comes next because you know that song if you grew up in this country. Or here's another one. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. And you're like, oh yeah, that takes me to a different time. And we know the words to it, right? Or if you're of a certain generation and I sang these words, just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a faithful trip, right? You're like, oh yeah, I know where that's going, right? So in our culture, we have songs that pretty much everybody knows. They all knew these songs. And so when they started chanting this song, everybody knew what this song was, right? This is from Psalm 118. It's about God coming to the aid of his people, of rescuing them, of bringing victory over their enemies. And the song actually says, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. From the house of the Lord we bless you." And it goes on to mention, right, even after that, with boughs or branches in hand, join in the festive procession. So they're like, yeah, this is it. We've got the palm branches. What's interesting is the crowd in Jesus' day then added a line that wasn't in the original song. The line they added is, "Blessed is the King of Israel." In other words, we're not just looking for God to deliver us. We want a king. And we want Jesus to be that king, right? But here's the rub. And I'm sure John knew this when he included this in his account of Jesus' entry. That just a few verses later in this same song, here's what we read. "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." This is in the same song that they're singing. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. And the very next day, and we read this in the Gospels, Jesus confronts the religious leaders and he quotes this line back to them. Because they, even though some of them came out and they were putting palm branches down and they wanted to come in as a victorious king, like they rejected him. And Jesus says, "I'm the stone that the builders rejected, and I've become the cornerstone." Why? Why did they reject him? Well, they wanted a palm branch Jesus, not an olive branch Jesus. He was not going to meet their expectations. And now, you might already know how the story played out, right? Probably not your first Easter, your first Palm Sunday. So John describes the rest of it. We pick up the story in John 12, starting in verse 14. Jesus found a young donkey, and he sat on it. As it's written, "Do not be afraid, daughter Zion. See, your king is coming, seated on a donkey's colt." And at first, his disciples did not understand all this. Only after Jesus was glorified, in other words, after he was crucified and raised from the dead, did they realize that these things had been written about him, that these things had been done to him. Now, here's the thing. Kings in that day, victorious kings, rode into town on a war horse. And there's reason to believe that the same day that Jesus is coming into Jerusalem on a donkey, that Pilate, the governor, is actually riding into town from the other direction with all of his pomp and circumstance on his war horses and chariots and all this. That these events were likely taking place at the exact same time. On that first Palm Sunday, Jesus isn't riding in on a war horse. He's riding in on a donkey. On a donkey. Their expectations were, we want you to ride in on a war horse, and Jesus says, no, I'm coming in as a servant, riding on a donkey. He would even go so far right after this to wash the feet of his disciples, an act of service that none of them wanted to do, let alone to have their king do. So as I mentioned a moment ago, on that first Palm Sunday, Nothing seemed normal at all. And on this Palm Sunday, in the middle of a global pandemic, I think Jesus is once again riding into town, so to speak. It doesn't feel normal. But the question for us, the same question for them, is will we go out to meet him? Will we go out to meet this Jesus who's riding into town? Or will we wait and say, I'm not going to do that because Jesus isn't the kind of leader that I'm looking for. He doesn't meet my agenda. He comes bringing an olive branch, and I want him to bring a palm branch instead. So the question is, will you make room in your life for this King? Will you make room in your schedule, in your priorities, to acknowledge Jesus is the King who rides into your town? Here's something to consider, right? If Jesus rides into your life or my life as King, what does that mean? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for you? Well, it means that we follow him as King, as our leader, quite honestly. And one of the most consistent instructions that we find from Jesus, our leader, our King, have to do with this whole idea of how we interact with one another. You may have heard the phrase, marketing phrase from the army, right? An army of one. I think what Jesus was doing when he was riding into town, among other things, is calling together and recruiting his own army, if you will, as a king. But it's not an army of one, it's an army of one another. Jesus talked, and his disciples later would go on to reiterate this in so many ways, right? That it's love one another, pray for one another, serve one another, bear one another's burdens. What more powerful message could we have on a time like this, on a Palm Sunday, in the middle of a global pandemic, than to say, how are we actually becoming followers of this King, this general, if you want to put it, who is recruiting an army of one another's? So here are a couple of ideas, some suggestions to consider as we move into another week where nothing is normal. And yet Jesus is riding into your town and into your life and saying, will you follow me as King? So here's some ideas. One, pick one person, right? Just one individual. Maybe it's an elderly person. Maybe it's even a single adult who you know is living by themselves. And reach out to them every week. Just find some way to contact them. Call them, right? Go old school if you have to. And see how they're doing. Ask them if there's something you can do to help. Ask them how you can pray for them. And then pray for them on the phone, right? Pray for them every day. Pray that God protects them, that God provides for them, that God blesses us. So that's one thing we can all do. We can say, I'm going to pick one person who I know is probably going through this by themselves. And I'm going to reach out to them. So here's another thing you could do. Adopt an essential worker. So those of us who are trying to maintain the quarantine, and by the way, we've had people say, hey, is it legal for the church to actually meet and do these events? And I want to assure you that we are not violating any laws or rules. So we came across the guideline from the Office of Legal Counsel at the State House of Governor Larry Hogan, right? Interpretive guidance on how churches and houses of worship are supposed to function. And it does say right down here, right? Minimal operations are allowed. Minimal operations include, but not necessarily limited to, facilitating remote services. So for those of you who were a little anxious and thought maybe we're stepping over the boundaries, we're operating within the guidelines that we've been given, and we will do that going forward, whatever those happen to be. But anyway, adopt an essential worker, right? So maybe it's someone who is stocking the shelves at the grocery store, and they have to be there, and we're glad they're there. Maybe it's somebody who's a delivery driver, right, who's bringing you food and other essential items that you can't go out and get because of the quarantine. Maybe it's a healthcare provider who is working in a clinic or a hospital and is providing much-needed essential health care for people who are ill and including those who are stricken with this virus. Maybe it's a first responder, right? You call 911, you've got an emergency, guess what? Those people are showing up. So those kinds of individuals, and there's a broad number of them, even the people in the scientific world who are working even now to try and find vaccines and treatments for this. I talked with someone from our church just this past week who works down the street at AstraZeneca, and he said, yeah, we're working overtime to try and find ways to, so we have brilliant minds. So find an essential worker, somebody that you know is in that field, whatever that happens to be, and reach out to them as well, right? And just ask, how can I pray for you? How can I encourage you? Is there anything I can do to help you? This is something we can do as an army of one another, as following the King who rides into town on a donkey, as the one who came to serve and even to sacrifice. And then one last thing you can do is to join us for our weekly prayer gatherings, and we pray together for one another. We have people who jump on the prayer calls, and we do them on Thursdays at 8 in the morning, 8 in the evening. We have people who jump on who aren't necessarily comfortable praying aloud, and that's fine. Who don't necessarily want their picture on the Zoom call, and that's fine. You don't have to show your video, but just join us. Be a part of that. Pray silently. If you have a request, join in and let us know what that is. So those are some practical things that any of us could do that would be a way to say, here's something we can do to be a part of following Jesus, especially into this Holy Week, but going beyond during this crazy, unpredictable time. So pick one of those or maybe more of those, and we love to hear how that's working out for you. As a church, one of the things we're trying to do is to help you all stay connected. So one of the things that I want to do now is I want to introduce somebody to you who is really on the front lines of our connections. You may know her. If you're part of Seneca Creek, you've seen her on stage many times. You've probably interacted with her out in the lobby. You know her as Pastor Mary Johnson. And so Mary has been working from home, like so many of you. But that doesn't mean that she's not trying to help people stay connected. She is our connections pastor. She cares deeply about this. And so I've asked Mary if she would come and join us for just a few minutes this morning and tell us a little bit about how we're helping people stay connected. So Mary, welcome.
Good morning.
It's so good to see you. Thank you for joining us today. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay,
So
I'm here.
So Mary, as we're trying to help our church stay connected through this time of being socially distant or separated physically, I know that you've been working to help counteract that and to provide ways that people can stay connected. So can you talk a little bit about what we're able to provide and offer for people at this point?
Oh, of course. I'm super excited about this week to come, and I am just super excited about the message that you've just given us, because it kind of leads into some of the things that we are doing for women. On Tuesday evenings, we're starting a new women online Bible study. Sheila Rose will be leading that study. She's going to be looking, it's called The Faithful. If you are interested in Old Testament heroes, this is a study for you. Not only is it just a study, but it is a way that we can stay together during these times of uncertainty. But with The Faithful, she's looking at 5 heroes from the Old Testament: Gideon and Nehemiah, Esther, Hosea, Malachi. And they're using videos from some of the top women pastors and leaders in the nation: Priscilla Schreier, Beth Moore, Kelly Martin, Lisa Harper, Jennifer Rothschild. And if you are free on Tuesday evenings, this is going to be a study that you don't want to miss. But not just that, on Wednesday for everybody.
All right.
If you want to get into this season, and I've been sitting here at home because I can't get out. I am in a very high risk category. I have asthma. I have diabetes. So I am definitely looking for this series coming up on Wednesday evenings. Rick Ferrente has decided to partner with me, and we're going to take a look at the last week of Jesus, starting from today, the triumphant entry into Jerusalem, to his crucifixion, to his resurrection, to the appearances after the resurrection, and the start of the early church after his ascension. That's on Wednesday evenings at from 7 to 8:30. It's online. You don't
So,
have to leave your house. Of course,
Mary,
please,
how would they find that information if they want to be a part of that?
If you go to the web page, under events.
Okay.
You will see both events there. You can just register right there online.
Okay.
There is no cost except for the women's group. It's a $5 minimum fee for the study guide.
Okay. So if somebody wants to start their own group, what should they do?
Give me a shout. I'm here 24/7.
Okay. How do they reach you? What's the best way to reach you?
Email. That's the best way to reach me. Email.
Okay. And that is?
Mary@SenecaCreek.org.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I know you're working overtime to try and help us stay connected, so I appreciate that, and we'll keep in touch with you, and we'll stay connected, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
All right. So those are some opportunities in addition to the prayer gathering online that we talked about. I've also actually started something that we picked up in Africa called 4 o'clock coffee time. So when we take teams to Tanzania, every day at 4 o'clock, everything stops around the compound. People pull up a bench and they bring out some coffee and we just sit and talk. And there's no agenda and it's nothing fancy. So a couple times a week I'm putting that out there. I usually let people know on Facebook. It's an easy way. So if you want to be a part of that and you're not getting the information, let me know. Shoot me an email at markt@senecacreek.org, and I'll make sure that we keep you looped in on when those come up. It's a great time. We just do a Zoom call, and we laugh, and we have a great time. But speaking of getting connected, so I know that a number of you are trying to be connected as well. You're being very creative. So I'd sent a question out yesterday, and I had asked, hey, what is one thing that you're doing to creatively stay connected during this time? And a lot of you responded. So I've asked Pastor Jeanette if she would come up here and help me kind of work through some of these. So we're going to read through a few of these comments that you have sent in. So thank you for those of you who offered up your creative ways. So Jeanette, thank you. Welcome.
Good morning.
Coming up, we're trying to maintain appropriate social distance here. So we're going to read through some of these responses that you've sent in. And by the way, I mentioned earlier, too, we're going to do a Q&A after this. So if you've got questions about what's happening at Seneca Creek, or maybe about the comments that I shared earlier about Palm Sunday, whatever they happen to be sure to send those in on the chat section on Facebook, on YouTube, and we'll try to answer those in just a few minutes. So Jeanette, we've got... all right.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yeah, okay.
So thank you. It is crazy and bizarre, but we're here trying to make all this happen. So I know we've got some ideas here that people have sent in. So
yeah.
Do you want to add anything before we start doing that on how you're connecting? Or
Hi. Well, good morning. It's so great to see all of the connection happening in the chat on social media. So you miss all of that.
I do. I have no idea who's
I know.
watching.
Well, let me just tell you, lots of people saying good morning, Pastor Mark. Excited about
hi,
Palm
Fred
Sunday
and Bob
and the beginning
and Joan
of
and
Holy
Jennifer
Week,
and Tim and hi everybody. I don't know who's saying.
Laura V.
I wish I
Meyer
could
says
see
Happy
that.
Holy Week.
Oh, thank you, Laura.
Diane Jones was asking about Kevin's wife and baby. So they're doing well. Mom and baby are healthy. Baby's due on tax day, although I guess it's not tax day anymore, April 15th.
Not anymore, yeah.
Who would have ever thought, you know? Crazy times when they even extend the tax day. But so Kevin's baby and wife are fine. Even Eugene Guyton joined us this morning, Kevin's dad. So
whoa, check it out, man.
So thank you for being with us,
All
Mr.
right.
Guyton. We enjoyed that.
Nice. He probably tuned out already after Kevin went off the screen.
But I do want to say, so one of the things that I did this week to connect was I created a Facebook group for women called Resilient Together. And so there's about 76 of us in that group, which has just been phenomenal. And it's a place, ladies, where you can bring your positive experiences. When you're having a good day, you can encourage us. And it's a place where when you're having a bad day and you just need to lament or complain, we're going to let you do that there. We're going to do that together, and we're going to pick each other up, and then we're going to keep moving on. So if you're interested, find that group on Facebook. It's Resilient Together, Women Supporting Women.
That just highlights the difference between men and women. Like if I did a Resilient Together Facebook group for men, there'd probably be 4 guys. I'm serious. So they're like, oh yeah, I don't do Facebook. I don't check my email. You know, the guys, I mean, typically what happens is they're watching ESPN. So I have no idea what they're doing now. Because what does ESPN do? Like curling reruns or something? It's crazy. So anyway, but so we're trying to stay connected through a variety of different means. And if you have ideas that didn't make it in on the questions, be sure to let us know. We'll try and include some of those. So let's share some of these things that we picked up, Jeanette, if you don't mind.
Okay, so Michelle Lockie has been entertaining us with her online 90s music dance parties. I know I've enjoyed, just watching her dance parties. It's just a way to laugh and yeah. So
is that related to TikTok dancing by any chance?
I'm not sure.
I don't know what that is.
I got to check that one out. My kids will have to fill me in on that one.
So I have, this is from Maria. She says, I've attended a Zoom prayer meeting. I think it'll be neat to attend an upcoming online Bible study, probably what Mary was talking about. It's all been a blessing. So to answer your question, I've been more open to staying connected by seeking out and participating in new online technology opportunities. And I would just like to say to all the boomers out there, like, you're hitting it out of the park. Like, I've helped so many people who had no idea what Zoom was, even start to figure that out. So yeah, we're making progress.
So Katrina says that her family loves watching The Masked Singer. So they've done something pretty creative. They created Masked Singer Home Edition karaoke style, where the kids dressed in Halloween costumes and sang, and then they had to guess who it was. And,
that's awesome.
They said it was a great time. Lots of noise, but also lots of laughing. So creative.
Somebody is going to comment on the chat feed that we should do that next Sunday, that I should wear a mask, or we should have a masked pastor.
You don't want me singing. Yeah, definitely not.
Right.
I would wear a mask if I had to sing.
Okay, here's another one from Mo. He says, one creative thing I've done is to stay connected with other people is we all watch the same movie or TV show and then text throughout the show to make it seem as if we're all watching together in person. So there you go.
Ben and Colette have participated in a virtual drum circle. So definitely a creative thing, both of them together.
Yeah, that would be cool. Where's there. So our drummer Brandon would probably he'd probably be interested in that, right?
Yeah.
So check that out. So here's another person who wrote this in and said, my sister is a nurse in Maryland. After a work-related exposure to the virus, she has spent the last 10 days isolated in her basement and still awaiting results. I've been communicating with her every day to make sure she knows she is not forgotten. One creative thing we did was to play a card game together over Zoom. It's refreshing to have a lighthearted interaction. So yeah, that's a great way to do that.
And Jill says she's been doing online workouts with friends, virtual happy hours. I've heard of quite a few of those. That's fantastic. And working on music and just making sure that she's calling and emailing friends to stay connected.
Here's another one. Mary writes in, some of the ways we're staying connected, calling our elders to check on them, sending care packages, because the mail's still working, right? And hosting video chats with family, friends, and coworkers. So a lot of the video chatting is taking place.
Sarah says that her 8-year-old daughter has actually attended 2 birthday parties via Zoom. So that's pretty creative.
I like that.
They also did their Brownie Girl Scout troop online. And she has a coworker in North Carolina who also has a son about her age. So they set their kids up on Zoom. They met for the first time, hit it off, and had a great time together.
Wow.
Making
you
new
go.
friends on Zoom.
Exactly, right? Play dates on Zoom. So Janice, who I believe is a public school teacher, says, I'm using technology to support the interactions I'm used to having in person. Today, I use Zoom to have story time with Grandma, right? And I shared the story Abe Yo-Yo. I'm probably mangling that. I don't even know what that is. With my grandchildren. I used to Instagram, post silly pictures of myself for our school's virtual spirit week. And on Wednesday, I'm planning a virtual field trip with 90 freshmen. So that's pretty awesome.
And Winnie says that she's actually been making homemade birthday cards. Wow. Remember when we didn't have time for those things? And so now we have this time. And what a great personalized way to actually get mail, and mail that's handmade. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. It's like that meme that says, right, I used to say when I have time, I'm going to clean my house, and now I know that wasn't the real reason. Yeah, the cat's out of the bag. Here's another one from Lauren, who says, I've made a list of about 30 people to call and check in with. I'm through about 20 of them before I begin round 2 or expand my network. I'm an extrovert, so this type of outreach benefits me as well. When I feel lonely, I pick up the phone, right? It's that meme that says, if you know an extrovert, call and check on them. We are not okay, right? So
that is true. Jim says that he's been being intentional about reconnecting with family and friends that he hasn't talked to in a while. And these are folks that normally he would just talk to during the holidays. So he realizes that they need to connect more often, and he's taking this as an opportunity to do that. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, moving things to a different level. We've done Zoom and Facebook Messenger chats. This is from Karen. With family, friends, neighbors. The Facebook Messenger video has been a hit with my kids and teenage niece and nephew because they like playing the games with each other. So I guess you can play games on Facebook Messenger. Sorry, I don't.
You can.
I'm out. I'm out of the loop.
And then Hyacinth says that they've had family Zoom prayer check-in meetings. How cool. But the really cool thing is they've been connecting with family members in the UK, in Jamaica, in California, Georgia, New Jersey. Only at Seneca Creek do we have folks that have family members just
all
everywhere.
World,
I love it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, the diversity of our fantastic church. And so they're recognizing that this is actually a blessing because these are family members they typically wouldn't connect with regularly, and they've made a commitment to do this twice a month.
Wow. Yeah. These are some of the silver linings in the cloud, right, as it's helping us. Here's the last one we'll read from Krista. I'm part of a workout class at work. Once we had to start working from home, I wanted to keep it going, so I reached out to HR, see if we could do it virtually. They said yes. I asked the instructor if he would do it. He was happy to. I reached out to my workout buddies. They were all excited. So we meet twice a week on Zoom. The first time we met, there were only 2 of us and the instructor. Now we have 6 virtual workouts, 6 participants. So yeah, they get to hang out and continue staying healthy and connected and all these kinds of things. So those are some of the ways that you here at Seneca Creek are using this time and being creative. So if you've got other ideas, send them in. We'll try to share some of those as we have opportunity, and I'll have another question for next week. So I really appreciate y'all giving us some feedback like that. So I thought we'd take a couple minutes, Jeanette, before we wrap up our time here. Sometimes we get questions, so I don't know if there have been any questions that have come in about what we're doing as a church, or maybe some of the things that we've talked about here today. Is there any stuff we should address on the chat session?
Don't see any questions yet, so if you have them, go ahead and put those in the chat now. Amy is letting us know that you can actually do a watch party for certain movies on Facebook together. So check that out, where you can, kind of like the Netflix watch party.
Yeah.
Same thing on Facebook now. You can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I made the decision at the beginning of Lent that I wasn't going to watch TV and video during Lent, which turns out to have been a really bad timing on my part. So we've been really creative in my house. I've been doing some reading, and we've dragged out the games that we still have left, and we're playing some of those. I'm like, what was I thinking? Anyway, but Lent is almost over, so I'm going to celebrate this week, whatever it happens to be. So, hey, that reminds me one other thing, too. So those of you who've maybe tracked along with the announcements coming out of Annapolis with Governor Hogan, is he directed, whatever, that today, Sunday, at noon, that the entire state of Maryland take a moment for a moment of prayer and reflection. I forgot the exact phrase that he put on it, but I thought it was really great. So whatever your faith tradition is, just take a moment today at noon to be praying for the entire situation, for our nation, for our world. Actually, this is not a national thing. This is affecting everybody. So I would encourage you to do that today. Maybe set a reminder or something on your phone and take a moment today to pray together with the rest of the people in our state. Any other questions or things that we want to talk about?
So
I know we do have a couple announcements we want to hit real quickly.
Yeah. So Laura is telling us that she started a Facebook group called Educators Supporting Educators, and they now have over 7,000 members. Fantastic, Laura. That's
great.
awesome. I love seeing it when Seneca Creek people reach out to
Yeah.
support our community. So
That's great. And we have a
thank you,
lot of
yes.
educators that call this their church home too.
Yes,
So,
yeah. So we do want to tell you about some things that are going on and some things that you are doing as a church that you might not even be aware of. This week we've gotten some more requests for help, and so we have continued to give out grocery cards for folks who need it. We bought lunch for the men at the homeless shelter in Rockville. So thank you, Seneca
Yeah.
Creek. Your faithful giving has
And we're doing
allowed
that
us to
every
do
week,
that.
right?
Yes,
Yeah, I
every
think we
Friday.
have a slide somewhere for, there it
Yes.
is. Every Friday in April, and maybe beyond that too, right? So
It may go beyond April very well. So
yeah, and I
Fridays
loved
in April.
I loved what you said when you put one of your comments online that, hey, because you're not able to go to Starbucks as often
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's crazy, so you realize, hey, the money that I would have spent there, I could easily just move that over toward this. And so one option too is just to say, hey, what if I skipped a meal as a person? And took a meal off and fasted for a meal in order to help people who really don't have any other options. So whatever works for you, we just encourage you, if you can, to help us be a part of this program as well. So I think it's a great plan, yeah.
Yes.
And then what else did we...
And then a few other ways that we have coming up to connect tonight. I believe it's at 7. You can check our events page, Theology on Tap. Josh
Yeah.
Patterson, our high school young adult pastor, is leading kind of a virtual happy hour. So bring your beverage of choice and sign on. And they're going to be talking. I think that the topic is, does God plan everything? So that certainly is a relevant topic right now as we're talking about COVID-19. So young adults, join Josh online. You can register at Seneca Creek Events for Theology on Tap.
Okay.
And then Monday, tomorrow at 7, we are going to be hosting Making the Most of Learning at Home. And so this is going to be a conversation that Heather and Bob are having with 2 of our Seneca Creek folks who are in the education field and have experience doing homeschooling. So just some encouragement, some tips, and just, lots of parents are in this together doing schooling at home. And it's very different from homeschooling.
Right.
School at home right now is not the same as homeschooling.
Yeah.
So sign on to that. And one of the things we want you to know is this is for everyone. So share this on your social media, Facebook page. You can go to the Seneca Creek page and find the event. Share it, let people know they can join in. And that is going to be it's going to be a webinar that you'll be able to see right there live on Facebook at 7.
Yeah. Okay. And then is that it on the?
That's it
announcement side?
for the events that are coming up.
So a couple of quick things then too. Because this pandemic is really disrupting a lot of normal life, including work, we know that a number of people, even in our church family, are suffering job loss and financial hardship, and we do want to be able to offer help to you. So if you're part of this church, please contact us. On our webpage, there's a Church at Home tab. At the bottom of that is a link that says Get Help. So if you need help, please go there and start the process so that we know what your needs are and we can work on trying to help meet those. Also, there are some of you who have not lost your job and are not financially impacted by this because of, you're an essential worker or whatever your situation happens to be, or maybe you have other resources. So on that same page is a Give Help. So if you would like to participate in offering resources, training, networking, ideas, creativity, feel free to click that as well. We actually added someone to our tech team here this past week because they followed through on that and said, hey, I could help with streaming and tech, and so we've been able to add Sean as a part of our team. And for those of you who have financial resources, maybe you've been a part of our regular financial team, we would encourage you, if you're able, to stay the course with us. Many people have not been able to, and so that does affect our financial situation as a church. We are trying to take advantage of some of the resources and help that are offered through local and state and federal government. But this is going to be a tough season for everybody. So for those who have the means and the resources, we would encourage you, please step up with us at this point. A couple ways you can give. You can mail something in, and some of you have continued to do that. You can go to our website and click on the Give tab there, or you can text Seneca Give, the 2-word Seneca Give, to 77977. Church is not all about money, but ministry does take money, and so we appreciate those of you who are able to walk with us and journey with us, and some of you who are even able to pick up a little bit extra as we go through this season together. So any last-minute comments or questions there, Jeanette?
Someone is just saying, yay to Sean. Thank you, Sean, for stepping up. And someone was asking about the church calling people. So folks, we've got thousands of you in our database. So we have been making calls all week long. All of our staff is helping with that. So if you see Seneca Creek on your caller ID, answer the phone, because we'd love
the number, but they answered it anyway. They said, I don't usually answer it. I'm thinking, yeah, we don't usually do a lot of these things, but you're sitting at home, you have nothing else to do but answer the phone. No, I don't need my car and warranty extended, but this is Seneca Creek. So yeah, we are trying to work through it. I thought we'd get through them a little quicker, but part of the reason that it's taking a little bit longer, at least on my list, is that when I call people, they actually want to talk. It's a great opportunity, and we're looking forward to it. And don't hesitate if you need to reach out to use the phone, and we'll be sure to try and get back to you. So, yeah, we're working our way through the list. I don't know how much we have left, but, yeah, I've got a few to go.
Quite a few.
Anyway, anything else?
That's
Feedback on that? Okay, so let me just wrap up with a couple things. First of all, thank you to those of you who've stayed with us through this entire stream. We appreciate your participation. Be sure, as we said earlier, be sure to hit like and share this stream. You can put this on social media, and you can let your friends and family know, hey, they can kind of see what's going on with your church as well. Subscribe if you haven't already to the YouTube so you see the things that are coming up. And again, like we did last week, I want to give a shout out to our team that is making all of this possible, our quarantine, as I call them, because they're coming out here during the week to work out technology glitches. They're coming out early on Sunday, and so they're making this happen, and so I really appreciate all of our team, and so big thumbs up and shout out to them. And then let me just close with a prayer. This is a little bit different kind of prayer. And this came to me this morning when I was just kind of praying through where we are as a church and where I am and how God is at work and all this stuff. And this is actually the lyrics from an old hymn. Some of you may know this if you kind of grew up in the church. The title of this hymn is "This Is My Father's World." So for some of you, that might be a familiar song. I just want to read through the words of this as a closing prayer, and then we'll sign out, and you can get back to your activity. So if you would just join me in a moment of prayer as I read this prayer out. This is my Father's world, and to my listening ears, all nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's world. The birds their carols raise. The morning light, the lily white, declare their Maker's praise. This is my Father's world. I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas. His hand the wonders wrought. This is my Father's world. Oh, let me never forget that though the wrong seems oft so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is my Father's world. Why should my heart be sad? The Lord is King. Let the heavens ring. God reigns. Let the earth be glad. This is my Father's world. He shines in all that's fair. In the rustling grass, I hear him pass. He speaks to me everywhere. God, would you speak to us this day and this week? We thank you for your presence with us in this time. We thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, who rode into Jerusalem on that first Palm Sunday. And it is in his name, in Jesus' name, that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks so much. Have a great week.
Bye. Have a great week.